Welcome to the Pure Performance Café. May I take your order?
Yes, I would like a shot of Pure Performance, please.
Coming right up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pure Performance Cafe. My name is Brian Wilson. It's been quite some time since we had a cafe show, so I wanted to give everybody a quick reminder about what the show is about. So as opposed to the regular Pure Performance podcast, where shows are long when we try not to focus on our Dynatrace tools, the purpose of the cafe is to tackle much shorter topics, and talking about Dynatrace is fully accepted. So today's guest has been on the show a couple of times in the past, discussing website performance during that big, annoying annual American football event. At least I find it annoying. And for the next several days, he'll be covering performance during Cyber Week. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. David Jones.
Hey, Brian. How you doing? Thank you for very much having me back.
Oh, you're welcome, Dave. I don't know if you could hear the applause. I don't know if that went through to your... I had a little applause button. So, thank you for coming on, Dave. Before we go in quickly, who are you and what do you do and why do we care about you?
Oh, right. Well, I'm Canadian, so I don't know why most people would care. But aside from that, being Canadian offers some real advantages come Black Friday and Cyber Monday, meaning that I'm actually working.
Yeah.
Well,
that's one of my questions for later. You don't celebrate Thanksgiving up there, right? You haven't co-opted that yet, like some other strange American holidays. Yeah,
we've got Thanksgiving, but we did it about a month ago when things were still warm out. So that's the weird Canadian way. But basically, so Brian, so everyone listening gets an idea as to who I am. My name's David Jones. I'm a director of sales engineering here at Dynatrace. I've been with the organization around 10 years since the very beginning. And, ultimately what I've been doing over the past number of years is I've been writing a blog tracking, basically the activities during Cyber Week for Black Friday leading into Cyber Monday. And I've been looking at, basically the web performance that we're seeing from all of this online retail activity. And that sort of gives the listeners an idea as to, who I am and what I've been doing for the past couple of years and why I'm going to be talking about it today.
Great. Excellent. And I'll vouch for you to say that, you're very, very well knowledge and very well versed in all this. So there's a lot of great things to learn from Dave's blogs. Even if you're listening to this, the blogs go into a lot of diagrams and images showing some of the things he discovers. So make sure you check that out. What is that on APM blog or what is that? What's our blog site? Is it blogs.dynatrace.com?
Yes, blog.dynatrace.com.
Okay, excellent. So this year, one of the new things you're going to be talking about or looking at with the performance of all this stuff is visually complete. Now, can you explain what visually complete is and why it's a meaningful metric?
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm super excited this year that we've got access to this for the very first time. Visually complete is a measure that our engineers in our wickedly cool development environment labs that we got over in Linz, Austria have come up with, where it is quite literally, it's an algorithm that looks at the browser mutator APIs. I'm geeking out here. You can tell I'm so excited about this stuff. In a nutshell, what visually complete is, in sort of like a nutshell, it basically tells you how long does it take for that visual window that you're looking at within a browser to stop rendering, to be complete to that user. Now, when a page loads for a browser, whether or not it's in your desktop or on your mobile device, there's actually a lot of activity that's going on. And everyone knows that when a page loads, you can always, more often than not, you can scroll down into that page to find more content. So what visually complete is doing is it's giving us a measure that allows us to get a better understanding as to what the end user is experiencing when they load a page. So there might be a whole bunch of activity that's going on when that page is loading what we call below the fold, but that above the fold content, that visual impression, that is what we're capturing with the visually complete metric. And it's, what it does for retailers is it basically allows retailers to get a much better understanding as to what their end users, what their shoppers are experiencing when they're opening up those pages. So it's a much more realistic, it's a much more qualitative metric to use to manage the performance for how fast your web applications are loading.
Right. Now, in the past, we've also had like perceived render time, and other tools had other kind of ways to try to figure out that above the fold. And one of the reasons why all these kind of things are necessary is if you were to look at page performance and just look at, like, the on load time, it's very misleading, right? Your on load time might be 10 seconds, right? But the user might already be, feeling like the page is done and moving on within a few seconds, like 2 or 3 seconds. So that's always been one of the challenges for web performance, is understanding how do we measure what the user understands. And one thing, obviously, yes, our lab did an awesome job figuring out how to calculate this and bundle this up in a tool. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, one of the other reasons why this is such an important metric is that the concept of this metric was created by Google. I remember seeing Pat Meenan talking about this a while ago, and we were able to figure out a way to actually build into our user monitoring a way to calculate this and report back. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. We're one of the great things about working at Dynatrace is that in many cases obviously our team is blazing new paths, but what we're also doing is we're taking a lot and building on a lot of work that's already been done out in the industry, and by building on it, we're improving it and we're making it much more practical for people to implement and to ultimately utilize. Yeah. So here's the fabulous thing about it. So now that we have this visually complete measure, it's actually become a part of the entire fabric of what Dynatrace is. So basically, you'll see this measure come out of our synthetic monitoring. You'll see this measure come out of our real user monitoring. It's this measure that we capture, this visually complete measure, basically becomes another piece of data that Dynatrace artificial intelligence will automatically baseline over time, so that not only are we providing that data for retailers, but we're now providing an automated way to analyze it, to alert a retailer when these measures are falling outside of their expected norms. So these are all things that Dynatrace is really sort of innovating on.
Excellent. All right. Well, enough of that visually complete. Well, there'll be a lot more of it coming up, especially in your blogging, and hopefully we'll follow up on some of this. But let's get to the whole Black Friday, Cyber Week, Cyber Monday. Right. Black Friday's still a couple days off. Today is Wednesday. So we have 2 more days till Black Friday, and then I'm trying to do my math. 4 more days or 5 more days till Cyber Monday.
That's
right.
right.
You've already been looking, though, right? You've already started your investigation. Have you seen anything interesting going on leading up to the main event here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting because I posted out a blog article yesterday real quickly, and I was being tongue in cheek saying that pre-Black Friday carnage is already starting to emerge. Yeah. And while I'm being tongue in cheek about this is serious business. These are what's happening is we're looking at the culmination of months of effort by these retailers, on 2 specific days of the year. And what we're seeing, especially in the past couple of days, is there are, a number of these retailers are pushing, new builds out ahead of Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Now, this is actually a really good best practice for retailers because you can do all of your testing that you think that you need leading up to Black Friday, but ultimately, if you're pulling the switch on something on Black Friday and hoping that it's all going to work, you've better make sure that you've tested absolutely everything, because ultimately these applications are so complex. If there is likely going to be something that's going to fail, and so some of the things that we just saw recently, like, in the past couple of days, we've saw several retailers push builds out into their environments only to pull those builds back, relatively quickly, because, in this particular case, Doing it now, a couple of days ahead of Black Friday, I wrote in the blog, it's better to fail now than it is to fail, on that Black Friday or on that Cyber Monday. And that's the key thing is that, this whole process that, retailers have of, developing these applications and pushing them out, better to fail faster and know that you failed faster than it is to fail on the day of the event and not be able to understand why you're failing. So, yeah, we're seeing a lot of these retailers have some issues right now as they're pushing out builds and pulling those builds back, prior to, the sort of Black Friday activity.
That's interesting. I know in the last time we talked, and I just heard my Jersey accent totally there, talked. The last time we talked, you were discussing, some of the strategies for this are rolling out special versions of websites specifically for these high traffic events where things get stripped down. So, yeah, I can imagine to all of the points you just made above, getting those out early and testing them out with real traffic ahead of time so you have a chance to recover is a very smart idea. So hopefully for whoever it was that was doing that, it'll pay off for them.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Right, so you've been doing this for many years now, right? So on the app server side of the performance, it seems that no matter how much time goes by, people are still making the same mistakes. And my Pure Performance, the main show, Andy Grabner and I, we do that. We're always seeing the same mistakes over and over and over again. Especially Andy, he's diving into this, N+1 query, service patterns, same things over and over and over again for years, right? So. And you and I, in our regular adventures, daily adventures, we still see many of the same core browser WPO issues over and over again, even though it's been over 10 years since Steve Souders literally wrote the book, right? And there's been tons of ways to improve since then. With all of that in mind, right? And I'm going to ask you to put on your Criswell hat, or who's the one from? What was Johnny Carson's character's name? Skipping the great
amazing Karnak.
Yes, put on your futurist hat for the next few days. What do you have any predictions for this year's Cyber Week?
It's funny. You and I were chatting beforehand, and we were joking. You came up with the best line. Actually, there's going to be a lot of overtime. I predict there will be a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
Now, my prediction is that there are retailers that have nailed this. They understand this, and they have completely optimized their applications. They know exactly what it entails to deliver on, these mega events like Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Mm-hmm. But inevitably, to your point, there are going to be retailers that will miss things, and it's almost, I want to. It's so hard for me to say this, but I'll say it's almost comical in a way from the standpoint that these are issues that are constantly happening, and they're the same issues, just like you described.
Right.
And so where I feel there is a huge benefit to the industry now at large being able to address these, really sort of, common, issues that pop up, is going to be through automation. These issues that pop up, they're human errors that are introduced, well before into the life cycle of the application, and just sort of are underneath the surface, and they don't emerge until all of a sudden you hit something with a massive amount of traffic in a very specific way. And in those particular scenarios, what's needed is, in the industry, a way in which that you can automate the analysis of the data to look for those patterns before they bubble up into a problem that becomes catastrophic. And probably the easiest way to do that is honestly using things like artificial intelligence. And obviously, Dynatrace is a huge proponent of artificial intelligence. Yeah, no, exactly. But I kid you not.
That's right. No, I know.
You automate things with artificial intelligence, looking for patterns that's very easy for a human to miss. That's right. How you fix these problems. That's how you prevent them from slipping in, during the 6-month development cycle that organizations are taking leading up to their big Black Friday or Cyber Monday event. This is going to be, years from now. We will look back at this time and we will say, oh, do you remember when we started to automate this and we actually started to analyze this data with artificial intelligence, how better it made our lives? That's what's going to happen 5 years from now.
It's sad that you mentioned 6 months that they've been working on it. Hopefully there's not too much of that still going on, but I think there probably is quite a lot of that. I do want to just throw in for prediction. So Mark Tomlinson, our friend from Perf Bytes, is actually listening, and I'm using the cool Spreaker audio live broadcasting for the first time today. He sent us a chat message to give his prediction. So I will read you Mark's prediction, and we'll see where we come out on Monday or Tuesday. Mark's prediction, hi Mark, is that everyone will do just fine because the online sales started about 2 weeks ago and the spike condition isn't like the old days. I guess we shall see. We shall see.
There is, you know what? There is definitely more than a modicum of truth in that. Black Friday and Cyber Monday, in years past had been siloed, specific time-based events, and what we are seeing in our data. And here's the thing. So when I look at the data over the course of the week, I'm looking at not only our synthetic data, but I'm looking at real user data coming from actual retailers. And when we look at this data, we saw this last year, we saw it the year before. What retailers are doing is they are pushing these sales out ahead of Black Friday. So you're having pre-Black Friday sales. In fact, the actual, in many cases, those Black Friday sales, they don't start on necessarily Black Friday. They start on Thanksgiving Thursday. Right. If not even sooner. And so you're absolutely right. A lot of that load is being spread out over the course of what is now more of a cyber week than it is just Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But I will point out, though, I'll take this as an opportunity to point out that there is somewhere in the world that does have still focused on a very specific day retail event that's now actually eclipsed Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and that is, that Singles Day event that we see over in China. And, we've been looking at the data coming from Chinese retailers for that as well. Now, the amount of money that's being generated in that, one single day is astronomical. Like we're talking, over $17 billion. And it's a ridiculous amount of money. And what's really interesting, though, is that when I look at the web performance of some of those Chinese retailers, there's definitely a maturity that is happening within that market in terms of, those applications are becoming much more optimized, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. And that's going to be really interesting to watch over the next few years is what's happening, for Singles Day in China.
Yeah, all these rushes for a sale always help me lose faith in humanity. Ooh, 5 cents off now. Anyhow, so we have a lot to look forward to. We're going to see what happens over the course of the next few days. You're going to be blogging about it while we're all stuffing our faces over here in the United States. So we will try to catch back up with you sometime, maybe this weekend, if not, definitely next week, to see what you saw and what happened. And we'll join back up with you then. And so thank you for taking the time today, Jonesy. And in terms of Pure Performance Cafe, Andy Grabner, Andy, obviously, right, Jonesy? He was just in Austria, so he recorded a few episodes of the Cafe as well. They'll be playing over the next few days.
Oh, and
so excellent. So we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you very, very much for coming on. And
hey, Brian,
any last words or any last bits of advice to anybody? A couple days, 3 days left or 2 days left.
Yeah. So
last thing, if they're going to do one thing before, what would it be?
If you're going to do one thing before,
besides getting rid of that 5 megabyte image on the homepage.
If there's going to be one thing that, organizations want to do beforehand is, double check your plan. Double check your plan. Every organization, every retailer needs to have a plan to deal with, a catastrophic event. you should be right now reviewing that plan, making sure that, in the unlikely event that something happens, that everything that needs to work your plan is in place. So work your plan, guys.
And I will also add, in the spirit of what Andy and I are always talking about on the main Pure Performance show, is make sure your monitoring is in place and set up, because you're only going to have a chance at seeing that catastrophic event before it happens if you're paying attention and if you're monitoring all the right metrics. And if you're not sure about what metrics to look at, we've got tons of shows on Pure Performance, but even just from the front-end website metrics, if you go on blog.dynatrace.com and search for David Jones, he's got several write-ups and blogs from past years during this time frame, and also, as I mentioned, that superb, I had the B to it, Jonesy, superb bowl, where he discusses a lot of the things that went wrong. So make sure you're at least monitoring the metrics that are covered by Jonesy in there to help you find these issues before they become catastrophic, and then if it does become catastrophic, exercise that plan as Jonesy was recommended. Thank you very much, Jonesy. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care, everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving.
I got to play there we go. This was supposed to be the ending. See, this is all live, folks. All right, say it again, Jonesy.
Okay, so long, folks. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving all. Bye-bye.